Welcome to another edition of Danny's Hot Takes. Today we will be reviewing the new Codex Necrons. As a big-time Necron player, I am extremely hype to get a preview view of this and kind of go through the different units and the different abilities and stratagems and things like that Necrons get. It's a total Codex revamp. So take what you knew about Necrons, crumple it up into a ball, throw it right in the trash, because you're gonna need to start like brand new mostly. So yeah, let's take a peek now. One thing we are going to do is we are going to skip past the amazing fluff section. But if you are, I'm going to use my night scythe here to hold my page. If you are interested in that fluff section, man, is it good! Like, so much cool new stuff. Kind of shows where the Necrons are at, what this Arcana Dynasty is kind of brought to the fluff because they reemerge from beyond the galaxy from the Silent King's secret mission, and kind of let you know what's going on there, how they absorb people. All that stuff is all brand new fluff. So the book is well broken up into different sections. First, you have rules for detachments, and then stratagems, and then Cryptek arcana. And then you have the army rules section, and these are things like relics, warlord traits, powers of the Satan. Then you have the matched play rules, crusade rules, data sheets, war gear, points, and the rules reference. Yes, that's right. It has a rules reference section at the back that you can reference for all of the Necron specific rules, which is great. I mean, I think that's a really nice feature. You don't have to dig through the whole book to find that stuff. So let's dig in. Detachment abilities is the first one. There are 4 pages of detachment abilities. That is a lot of detachment abilities. So first thing it goes through is what Necron detachments get. So they get the Royal Court and Dynastic agents and Star Gods abilities. So these are rules that apply to Necron army building as far as who can be your warlord. And also the dynastic codes represent what tomb world your Necrons come from, or what dynasty, I guess, is more specific. So we'll go over the dynastic codes after this. The Royal Court is a rule wherein it determines who your warlord is. If the Silent King is in your army, he's the warlord. Sorry, no choice. He's the boss. You got to pick him. If you have a Pharaon, now a Pharaon is an ability that you can get from a stratagem, which we'll go over a little bit later. That guy has to be the warlord. Otherwise, it has to be an overlord. If it's not an overlord, then it has to be a Necron lord. If your army contains none of those units, like you've chosen none of the noble units, I think you'll probably be at a disadvantage, first of all. But second of all, you will get to choose your warlord freely.
It's like, but you're doing it wrong.
Yeah, but you're doing it wrong. Don't do that. And then they have the dynastic agents and Star Gods call out, and I think a lot of people are going to miss this right off the bat because it's kind of small and in the way. Basically, you can include dynastic agent units and Satan units in your list and still benefit from the dynastic codes ability because your army has to be all built from one tomb world in order to get the benefit. Whereas those guys don't count towards that. So kind of like commissars in an Imperial Guard army, something like that. That's how that works. There's also a rule that says that you can only contain a maximum of 1 Satan shard in each detachment. So the most that your Satan shards that you're bringing to a 2,000 point game is going to be 3. That is the absolute max. But the Satan shards got a massive boost in abilities, so I think that you'll see that they're pretty decent, and you probably may want one if you're willing to expend the points for them, and they do cost a significant number of points. All right, so dynastic codes. These kind of got spoiled a while ago, I think, just kind of on Facebook, and Games Workshop kind of did a real quick flip through of the Necron book, and some enterprising genius or leaker, I don't know, one of those things. He spoiled it. So detailed some of these, but we can just go over them real quick. So Mefrit is add 3 inches to the range of ranged weapons. And if you're within half range, improve the armor penetration of ranged weapons by 1. And then each of these 6 dynastic codes also keys off of one of the new protocols, which we'll be going over. And this one lets you pick both abilities from one of the protocols, and each of the different dynasties has that. So this one is the protocol of the Vengeful Stars, which boosts your shooting. And then you have Novoke, Awakened by Murder. This one gives +1 to charge rolls. And anytime you charge, are charged, or heroically intervenes, you improve AP on melee weapons by 1. And then this you get both benefits from the Protocol of the Hungry Void, which is the really good close combat one. Then you have Nephrek. Nephrek is known for their teleportation technology. So everybody in that dynasty gets a 6-up invul, that's really cool, actually. And because Necron armor saves are surprisingly not great, so 6-up invul on a lot of stuff is like really not that bad. They have a decent amount of invuls on their vehicles and things like that, but just getting it on everything is a nice little boost. And then when they advance, they can translocate instead. So then they just auto get 6 and can move through models and terrain as if they weren't there, and they can also fall back through models and terrain as if they weren't there. So they can fall out of combat. You can't wrap them, which is pretty cool. Unless you get them in a place where they're surrounded and they have nowhere to move within 5 inches, which is probably pretty difficult unless it's like a 30-man squad of boys that's spread out pretty good. Then Nihilak. Now, I am partial to Nihilak, as you may have told if you can see any of my models here. They get an ability where everything in their list gets gets objective secured. And if you already have OBSEC, then thank you, John. If you already have OBSEC, then you get to count as 2 models for objective secured for counting how many models are there. So it's hard to take objectives from them. In addition, as long as they're in their own deployment zone, they ignore AP -1, and they get both benefits from Protocol the Eternal Guardian. Nephrek gets both benefits of the incredibly powerful Protocol of the Sudden Storm. I didn't say that before, but this one is maybe the best protocol. It's very good. All right, then we got Sasarkin, which is where the Silent King's dynasty. They all get a 5-up, ignore wounds from mortal wounds, which is pretty good. And they get to reroll a failed to wound roll whenever they make attacks, anytime they shoot or fight. And they get both benefits of Protocol of the Undying Legion, which helps guys to come back. And the final one is Sawtek. Now, Sawtek was the main dynasty in the last rule set. Actually, since like 5th edition, Sawtek has been like the dynasty for Necrons. And so they get to reroll failed morale tests. They also get, as long as they're within 18 inches, they can double shoot with rapid fire weapons, regardless of what that weapon's range actually is. So this comes into account with like the Goth's Reapers pretty well, because they have a 14-inch range. So as long as you're within 14 inches, you can rapid fire with those guns, which is great. And then they get both benefits of Protocol of the Conquering Tyrant, which is one of the less good ones in my opinion. All right, and then you have make your own dynasties. Now, in my opinion, it might be worth it to not take a dynasty from the other ones and create your own. I think the create your owns are very powerful, especially since the very first create your own is Eternal Conquerors, which gives you the Nihilak ability of giving OBSEC to everybody. And so you can combine that. So if you have a dynastic tradition and you don't take the Vassal Kingdom one, and the Vassal Kingdom basically lets you pick one of the other dynasties and count your dynasty as that. You get to pick one dynastic tradition and one Circumstances of Awakening. Those dynastic traditions are a little bit more powerful, and the Circumstances of Awakening are just kind of like little bonuses, I feel like. So they have Pitiless Hunters. When you instead of making the normal rules for rapid-fire weapons, models of this code shooting rapid-fire weapons make double the number of attacks if either the shooting model's target is within half the weapon's range, or the shooting model is infantry and has remained stationary. So kind of like Bolter Drill. Then you have Superior Artisans. Each time you shoot or fight, you can reroll 1 to wound roll. That's great. Rad Wreathed. Units with this ability, with this code have the following ability: Rad Wreathed Aura. When an enemy unit is within 1 inch of this unit, and this doesn't count for vehicles, subtract 1 from the toughness characteristic of those models. So they're kind of like Skitarii, to where you can be like really close to somebody and reduce their toughness, which basically makes sure all your guys +1 strength, which is really nice. Immovable Phalanx. Each time an attack with a damage characteristic of 1 is allocated to an infantry model with this code, unless that model's unit made a normal move, advanced, or fell back this battle round, add 1 to armor saves taken against them. So as long as they stand still, they get all as dust from Thousand Suns. Unyielding is a 6+ invulnerable save. Not bad. Contemptuous of the codes. Each time a model with this code makes an attack against a character, you can add 1 to that attack's hit roll. So they're kind of like flaunting like the Necrons, high honor that they have for dealing with people. So that one's pretty cool. Unmerciful Horde. Each time a morale check is taken, you can reroll the test, so they get to reroll morale. You have Masters of the Martial. Each time a unit with this code is selected to shoot or fight, you can reroll it to hit roll. Not bad. Butchers, add 1 to charge rolls made for units with this code. That's also pretty good, especially if you're going to kind of run a more close combat themed army, which is very viable in this book. And then finally, we have Severed. A unit with this code benefits from the selective directive of your army's active command protocol while it's within 9 inches of a friendly Necron character model instead of 6. So you get to use protocols as long as you're within 9 inches instead of within 6 inches. All right, and then you get to pick one of these circumstances of awakening. These are pretty good too, but they're a little bit more niche. So Ancient Stir, add 1 to the move characteristic of Canoptic units, and when Canoptic unit makes a pile-in or consolidate move, they get to move 4 inches. Then you have Arise against the Interlopers. Each time a model with this code makes a melee attack against an infantry or biker unit, an unmodified hit roll of 6 automatically wounds. I think this one's really good. It makes all of your infantry and bikers into effectively scarabs, where anytime they're rolling a 6 to hit, they're also auto-wounding. And then you have Healthy Paranoia. Add 3 inches to the range of ranged weapons with this code. Nice. Then you have Relentlessly Expansionist. At the start of the first battle round, before the first turn begins, units with this code can make a normal move up to 6 inches. So I think this one is very powerful for Necrons. This is probably the best one of the Circumstances Awakening that we have. And we'll go over what I think kind of are some great combos here in a minute. Then we have Isolationist. Each time a model with this code makes an attack with a rapid fire weapon that's within 12 inches, add 1 to the strength. This one's also very good. Warrior Nobles. So this buffs your warrior or your noble units, so they get to reroll to hit and wound rolls of 1 in melee, which is nice. And then finally, we have Interplanetary Invaders. Vehicle units with this code are eligible to shoot in which the turn they fall back. They just get -1. And vehicle models with this code suffer the penalty to hit rolls incurred for firing heavy weapons into combat. They ignore that. So they can fire heavy weapons into combat without penalty, which is pretty nice. So, I think Interplanetary Invaders works really well with things like Superior Artisans or Masters of the Martial. I think both of those work really well with them. Let's see. Also, that one is pretty good with... let's see here. I'm trying to think of what the other one is. Yeah, those I think are the best ones for it. Although, of course, Eternal Conquerors comes into play with like every one of these. I think Eternal Conquerors and Relentlessly Expansionists that's probably one that you're going to see quite often. I think that's very good. Or alternatively, that with Isolationists, so you get a bonus strength on rapid fire weapons when you're close. That's pretty baller. And like even being able to make like your normal Gauss weapons strength 5 means you're wounding like all vehicles on 5s, and that's just a lot of shots and potential damage. All right, so let's move on to stratagems. So for stratagems, man, do they have a lot of strats. Necrons have about 40 different stratagems, plus the ones that are chapter specific. We've got Dimensional Corridor. This basically lets you take a core infantry army from your army and take it away from the battlefield, take it off the battlefield, and put it within 3 inches of a monolith. So teleporting out of combat, it's pretty stellar for that. That is such a powerful ability and probably one of the best things the monolith can do. We have Oracular Targeting. And so this just lets you automatically wound with a shot from your army. Just say, no, I don't feel like chancing that one. This one's got to go through. It's going to wound. We've got extermination protocols. Now, this is a reprint of one from the last Necron book for destroyers, and so this affects especially low curse destroyer models in the shooting phase only, and it lets you re-roll all to wound rolls for that unit, but not to hit rolls. Now, destroyers already re-roll ones to hit, so it's pretty. They're going to be pretty accurate, and it goes from 1 CP to 2 CP, and that strat should have been a 2 CP strat anyway. So a little bit of a reduction there, but that's fine. I still think that unit has a lot of play. Just the ability to re-roll like a ton of strength 6 shots is very powerful. You've got Storm of Flensing Blades. Use the stratagem at the start of the fight phase. Select a flayed ones unit, and that's engaged, and they get to fight again. So that's pretty nice. Fractal Targeting. So this is for a Tomb Blades unit. All the rapid fire weapons in the Tomb Blades unit become Assault 2. And then also you don't suffer a penalty for advancing and shooting, which is really nice. So Tomb Blades have 2 different assault weapons that they can pick, or they can pick double Gauss Flares. And so making the double Gauss Flares Assault 2 is kind of nice. And then you also just get to shoot with them. So if you really need to get them in range, that's a good way to do it. Let's see, we've got Judgment of the Triarch. So this is when a Triarch unit selected to shoot or fight with. And you can just, it's a 1 CP, give them a +1 to hit. We've got Eternal Protectors. This is a unit of Lich Guard. As long as they're within 3 inches of a friendly Dynasty Noble, they get +1 attack. So that's pretty cool, especially when you're rocking War Scythes or something like that. There's a couple of other different ways to get attacks. I think that you can get like 6 attacks model. I'd have to look, but I'm pretty sure there's the capacity to actually do that, which is pretty gross. All right, then we've got Resurrection Protocols. This is a 1 CP strat for Necron Infantry Noble or Necron Infantry Cryptek model. And you roll a dice after they die, and on a 4+, they get back up with D3 wounds, which is nice because it was just 1 wound before, and now it's D3, so you have the chance to get a little bit bonus wounds. And it's the disadvantage here is, of course, now in 9th edition, you can't re-roll that 4+ to get up, so that's kind of a bummer, but not the worst thing in the world. We've got Strange Echoes. So this is for a Satan Shard. It lets you replace a power of the Satan that he has with something else. You've got the Deathless Arise. So this is for a Technomancer model, which is the rename of the standard Cryptek. It lets you do the Rites of Reanimation, which we'll go over when we look at his data sheet a little bit. We've got Dimensional Destabilization. And this is for a Satan Shard. Basically, this is a 2 CP or 1 CP stratagem. You roll a dice, and the Satan Shard immediately uses that Satan power according to that number that you roll. If it's a super heavy, a Titanic unit, it costs 2 command points instead of just 1. And then a 2 CP stratagem for Entropic Strike, where you can have your Satan ignore invulnerable saves for his attacks in close combat, which is pretty nice. Hand of the Pharaon. So this is a rule, and I'm surprised that this made it as a stratagem and not just an upgrade for the actual model, like some of the chapter command things in Space Marines or the new Cryptek Relics. And Hand of the Pharaon lets you upgrade one of your overlords to a Pharaon, and a Pharaon gets to do the My Will Be Done power an additional time. So he gets to do it twice, which is kind of nice. And that's the only way that you can do it twice. So it's either using this, or you have a guy that's already a Pharaon, like the Silent King or the Stormlord. Dynastic Heirlooms, I really like. So this is the Relic buy stratagem. So buy a Relic. I really like this because they've changed it to not be 1 CP/3 CP, and also not just 1 CP buy however many you want. That you can use this strat a limited number of times. Basically, the number of times is based on the size of the game. So since we typically play 2,000 point games, you can use this stratagem twice. If we were playing 3,000 point games, you could use it a whopping 3 times if you so desired. Yeah, suck on that. Then you have Rarefied Nobility. Rarefied Nobility is the Warlord trait buy, and Necron's got this, which is awesome. Their Warlord traits are okay. I don't know that you necessarily buy them every single game, but they're still pretty good. So this lets you buy this, and this has the same restrictions as Dynastic Heirlooms. So in a 2,000 point game, you could potentially have 3 Warlord traits. Then we have Enslaved Protectors. This lets a Cryptek unit a Canoptic unit get Heroic Intervention, which is always good for 1 command point. That's pretty solid. And then Stellar Alignment Protocol lets your vehicle count as being on top profile. And it costs 2 CP if it's used on a Titanic unit instead of a regular unit, which is good. Because it's way more valuable for somebody like that. All right. So we have reanimation prioritization, and this is for a Cryptek reanimator. Basically, the Cryptek reanimator points his beam at a unit. They get +1 to reanimation protocols. Now he can use this ability. You can swap units. So basically, in your opponent's shooting phase, when they target a Necron unit, like you said, like they're like, okay, cool. Well, I can ignore that unit now because like they're going to just reanimate on 4s. That seems like a waste of time. I'm going to shoot this unit over here. You could be like, haha, joke's on you. Now it's this unit instead. And so, like, especially if they have one model that puts out a lot of firepower, and you're afraid he's going to wipe that unit, being able to switch it is not a bad idea. I think that's probably pretty good. Then we have Burrowing Nightmares. This is for a unit of Ophidian destroyers. As long as they're on the battlefield, you can use this, and you put them back into reinforcements, and they come back anywhere on the table outside of 9 of enemy models. So a re-deep strike on the last turn or something like that to get on an objective is pretty good. Or like removing them turn 4 to get on an objective, turn 5 if you need that for a secondary, or into like your opponent's deployment zone for scramblers or something like that is pretty good. Self-destruction, you know it, you love it. It's when the Scarab Swarms explode on your enemies. Super solid. We've got the Prismatic Dimensional Breach. And self-destruction is... on a 2 through 5, they take D3 mortals. On a 6, they take 3 flat mortals. And then you lose a Scarab Swarm, which is pretty good. It also means that you can't reanimate that one unless you're targeting him with like a separate effect. We've got a Prismatic Dimensional Breach. So use a stratagem in the reinforcement step of your movement phase. Select 1 dynastic core unit from your army that is in strategic reserve, and then select 1 friendly dynasty Night Scythe or monolith model that's on the battlefield. Set them up around that model, wholly within 3 inches of the monolith, and not in engagement range of any enemy units. So there's no stipulation of being 9 inches away. So you can launch like a Night Scythe into your opponent's deployment zone on turn 2, then drop a unit all around them and assault with it potentially, which is really powerful. Like getting a unit of Lich Guard into somebody's face like right away is extremely powerful. And in addition, a Night Scythe can hold 20 guys now. So you can have them teleport around or like you just disembark from it when it dies. It's not like they're in the warp anymore or on the Tomb World. So I think there's a lot of cool play that you can use with the Dimensional Breach. Shadows of Drazek. This is used on a unit of flayed ones when they're selected by an attack. Give them -1 to hit. Why? Why not? They're scary. They're gross. Etheric Interception. So this is the ability that Deathmarks have, where they could come in when somebody deep strikes and like counter deep strike and shoot them when they come in. So now it's a stratagem. It's pretty good, and you instead of having to set up within 12 inches, now you can set up within 18. So you get a little bit further away to still snipe out that important character that needs to die. Okay, and then we have Relentless Onslaught. This is for I like this one quite a bit. Whenever they make an attack with a rapid fire weapon, and for a core infantry unit, an unmodified hit roll of 6 does an extra hit. So they kind of get like mini Tesla on their shooting attacks. This is super powerful for a unit that has a ton of shots, like a Necron Warrior unit that comes out like with Gauss Reapers or something like that. I mean, it can do a ton of damage to something important. Curse the Pharaon. This is a thing that you can use when a vehicle dies, and you can just have it auto explode. And the reason it costs 3 CP is if you want to use it on a Titanic unit. Again, you have to spend a few extra command points, and that's pretty standard fare throughout these different rules. Is it costs a few more command points to utilize them if the unit is big, or if the model is a high point model. You've got Atavistic Investigation. Or Instigation, I'm sorry. Wow. So this is when a Doom Scythe shoots. Basically, it is After you shoot a unit, you use the stratagem and pick a unit within 3 inches, 3 inches of the target, and then that target has to choose whether it's going to brace or duck for cover. So if it chooses to brace and it's not a vehicle or monster, it takes D3 mortal wounds. If it ducks for cover, then at the end of the turn, subtract 1 from the attack characteristics of them, and the unit can't fire Overwatch or set to defend. So that's pretty baller. So if you want to knock out like somebody who you're going to charge later on, you can do this so they can either take D3 mortal wounds and still Overwatch, or not get to do that, and also be -1 attack. Revenge of the Doomstalker. Okay, so full disclosure, the Cryptek Doomstalker is by far my favorite model of this new release, and this stratagem is my favorite stratagem by a lot. Because it's kind of like... it's... it's kind of retributive. Basically, if you lose a Dynasty character from an enemy unit, you can pay 2 CP and use this strat on a friendly Cryptek Doomstalker. At the end of the phase, the Doomstalker gets to shoot the unit that killed your character, and all Doomstalkers, the next time that Doomstalker model targets that unit, he gets +1 to hit. So, and that's till the end of the battle. So anytime he shoots that unit, he's +1 to hit, which is great. Let's see, we got Disruption Fields. So this is for a Necron core unit. They get +1 strength. And Disintegration Capacitors. So this is for Necron's unit when they shoot Gauss weapons. Any unmodified 6s just automatically wound, which is pretty nice. We've got Malevolent Arcing. So this is for when you shoot Tesla weapons. After you make the attacks, roll a d6 for each other unit within 6 inches of the enemy unit. On a 4+, they take 1 mortal wound. So kind of nice for spreading out the damage. I don't think that one's going to get used too much. It's just kind of a low threshold. I guess it's not bad if they have a lot of characters that are hiding behind like one specific unit. You could do a bunch of mortal wounds to them. That might be worthwhile. Whirling Onslaughts. This is for Scorpek Destroyers or Scorpek Lords. Whenever they're selected as the target of an attack, you can give them -1 to wound, which is pretty nice considering those guys are going to be crossing the table by themselves quite a bit. And that's in melee or shooting, so they kind of spin around and block stuff with their blades. We've got Quantum Deflection. So with the way that Quantum Shielding works now, this buffs your invulnerable save instead. So it gives your invulnerable save, it gives you +1 to your invul save, so you get a 4-up invul on that unit. And it's reactive, so when they're targeted by an attack. Solar Pulse. Now this one has changed. It used to be you pick a unit that's shooting at an enemy unit, and that enemy unit doesn't get cover against the unit that's shooting its attacks, and then it's over. Now, it's when you go to shoot a unit, you pop this, and they don't get cover from anything. And it's not just armor saves, it's just they don't get cover. So, like, if it's a -1 to hit, you can ignore that too, which is pretty nice. And the final stratagem for the generic strats is the Reconstitution Protocols. So pick this when a Ghost Arc model from your army is used in your command phase to bring back warriors. Instead of bringing back D3 warriors, it brings back D6. All right. Now let's look at the dynastic stratagem. So each different specific dynasty has their own strat, and they're all pretty good. So I don't know. So Talent for Annihilation is the Mephrit one, and this is the kind of the reason you would want to play like these named dynasties. So Mephrit is select this. Use the stratagem in your shooting phase. When a Mephrit unit from your army is selected to shoot until the end of the phase, each time a model in that unit makes an attack, an unmodified wound roll of 6 inflicts 1 mortal wound on the target in addition to any other normal damage, to a maximum of 3 mortal wounds per phase via this stratagem. So that's pretty good. It's tough though. Like it's not something that you can count on necessarily unless you have a lot of shots, and even if you do, it's only going to be 3 mortal wounds. So is that going to be the tipping point? I don't know, hard to say. But Mephrit has a lot of other stuff going on, so I think that they're still pretty good. Translocation Crypt, this lets you give models the Dimensional translocation ability. Sorry. And this is not vehicles or monsters. Basically, it lets them teleport. So they get to deep strike onto the table. Because they're trying to kind of combine terms and just use keywords for those special rules and put them at the start of the match play rules section. Then you have Nihilak, Reclaim a Lost Empire. This one's very good as well. Another reason that this dynasty is pretty solid. Use the stratagem in your shooting phase. Select a Nihilak infantry unit from your army that is currently performing an action. That unit can still shoot without the action failing. So getting to shoot and do an action is kind of like a double up, and that's a very powerful ability. Blood Rights. Blood Rights is a 1 CP strat for Novoke. Use a stratagem in the fight phase. When a Novoke unit is selected to fight, give them +1 attack. Nice. Yeah, why not? Who wouldn't want an extra attack? That's great. Then you've got Methodical Destruction from Sawtech. So it used to be this was a 2 CP strat that made you do an unsaved wound to the target. Now you just have to shoot at them with one thing, and then everything else in your army will get +1 to hit against that target, which is really solid. And the final one is for the Caesarcan dynasty. So this one is use a stratagem in your opponent's psychic phase. When an enemy psyker attempts to manifest a psychic power within 18 inches of a Caesarcan unit from your army, roll a d6. On a 4+, the psychic power is denied. So really good, like just an auto deny on powers, especially since Necrons don't have a ton of like recourse against like a heavy psychic army. Like that's a great ability to have. All right, move past for oh man. Same artwork as was in the campaign book. So tremendous. Like, oh, that's so cool. All right. So here's something brand new. Nobody really has seen all of this stuff or how it works. And this is the Cryptek Arcana. And this is brand new rules. Like, it's one of the cool things that Necrons are able to customize. So there's a ton of things on here. I think that there's probably, let's see, 12 there's 12 different abilities. So we have the and they're specific for some types of Cryptek can only use them, but other ones any Cryptek can use. And so if you want to take these, it costs extra power or points to upgrade your Cryptek to have this stuff. So you have the Add a Vindicator for a Psychomancer model. You select one enemy unit at the end of your movement phase that's within 18 inches and roll 3d6. If it's equal to or greater than their leadership, they take d3 mortal wounds. So kind of a nice little smite. You have the Crypto Geometric Adjuster. At the start of your opponent's shooting phase, you can select one enemy unit within 12 inches invisible to the bearer. Until the end of the phase, each time a model in that unit makes an attack, subtract 1 from the hit roll. So nice little debuff on enemy units. Photonic Transsubjector. Once per turn, the first time a saving throw has failed for the bearer, the damage characteristic of that attack is changed to 0. So that's pretty nice to keep your guys alive.
Feels bad, Harpoon Knight.
Yeah, sorry, Harpoon Knight. Don't harpoon him first. Shoot him with something like a bolter. Then you have the Dimensional Sanctum, which gives them dimensional translocation or deep strike. Cortical Subjugator Scarabs. So once per battle, at the start of the heroic intervention step of your opponent's charge phase, you can select one friendly dynasty unit within 6. Unless they're already engagement range of an enemy unit, they get to heroic intervene as if they were a character. So kind of like a nice surprise, especially if he's hanging out with like a unit of Lich Guard or Triarch Praetorian, or not Triarch Praetorians, but something else, Wraiths, something like that. Counter-temporal nanomines. This is for a Chronomancer model only, and they did preview this on GW's website. So this is you pick a unit within 18 inches of the bearer until the end of your next turn, have their advance and charge rolls. You've got the failsafe Overcharger for a Technomancer only. In your command phase, you can select one friendly Canoptic unit within 9 inches until the start of your next command phase. Add 1 to the attack characteristics of models in that unit. If that unit is a monster or vehicle unit, add D3 to its attacks characteristics instead of 1. So that's really solid for a unit of like Canoptic Spiders, because you can give them all plus D3 attacks. They already have 5 attacks each, so that's pretty cool. Then you have the Hypermaterial Ablator. Ablator, that's right. So in your command phase, you can select one friendly Dynasty Core or Canoptic unit within 9 inches until the start of your next command phase. Each time a ranged attack is made against that unit, if the attacker is more than 12 inches away, they get light cover. I really like that one. I think that's just a nice little bonus. And like, it doesn't cost a ton of points. It's only 20 points. So definitely a nice one to take. Quantum Orb. I like this one quite a bit. I think it's really fun. So choose a plasma. So use it on a Plasmancer. Once per battle. Excuse me. Once per battle. In your command phase, the bearer can activate this item of Cryptek Arcana. If it does, select 1 point on the battlefield anywhere within 24 inches of the bearer and place a marker on that point. At the start of your next command phase, roll 1d6 for each enemy unit within 6 inches of the center of that marker, subtracting 1 if the unit being rolled for is a character. On a 4 through 5, the unit suffers d3 mortal wounds, and on a 6, they take 3 mortal wounds. So this is a great way to get your opponent off of an objective. Like, if they don't, unless they just want to sacrifice like 1 unit to it, and then they're going to be taking d3 mortal wounds on a 4+, which is nice. But they're definitely not going to want to put more than 1 unit on it. And then it's simple for you to wipe that unit out on your turn if it's just 1 unit. I feel like that's a pretty good little strike that you can do on somebody. So do that on like the first turn on one of the center objectives as well, so that if they want to score, they're going to have to take some wounds. Okay, then you have Metallodermal Tesla Weave. What even is that?
My favorite band.
At the end of the charge step of your opponent's charge phase, you can select 1 enemy unit that finish a charge move within 6 inches of the bearer, and on a 2+, they take d3 mortal wounds, which is nice. They have the Phylacterine Hive. So this one's for a Technomancer. Technomancers have 2, and the Chronomancer, Plasmancer, and Psychomancer only have 1. But this lets you do Rites of Reanimation on a Canoptic, Destroyer Cult, or Triarch Praetorian unit instead of on a Dynastic Code unit. I don't know that this lets you, if you use the Stratagem, to use Rites of Reanimation a second time, if it lets you do it twice on that unit. If that's the case, this is a really great relic, because once per game, by spending, the 30 points or whatever, or the 20 points that this costs, plus a command point, bringing back like potentially 2 really expensive models is really good. Especially if it's something like a Wraith or a Tomb Spider or 2 Scorpek destroyers or some regular destroyers. Bringing back 2 regular destroyers is pretty good if that's the case. Even if it's not, it's still worth it probably to bring back a destroyer for free. Or if it's going to be an expensive model like that, or the Locust Heavy Destroyers at 4 wounds a pop, that's probably a pretty good way to bring one of them back. That would be pretty freaking annoying. And then the last one we have is the Prismatic Obstrification. And so, unless the bear is the closest eligible target, enemy models cannot target him with ranged attacks. So you say, well, okay, but he's a character, right? Like, who cares? He doesn't have to be close to units. He doesn't, and it doesn't specify. So models that get to ignore "Look Out, Sir" can't ignore this, which is great. And so we'll see that this rule is incorporated several other places in new books. So I think it's a pretty good change. Warlord traits. Necrons have 12 Warlord traits. So you've got the generic ones and the dynastic ones. And they did change which characters get which set Warlord traits, so they are going to be different. So you have Enduring Will. Enduring Will is used by Trazian the Infinite and also Illuminator Caesaris. And so this one gives you -1 damage, so that one's the same, but still very good. Eternal Madness, of course, my homie, Nemersor Zandrek, he gets this one. And this is each time the Warlord makes a melee attack roll, you can reroll the 2-wound roll, which is great. Immortal Pride. And this one is taken by, Orcan the Diviner. And so this one used to be auto pass morale tests and deny a witch. You get 1 deny the witch. Now, it's each time the Warlord would lose a wound from a mortal wound. On a 5+, he ignores it. And this Warlord has an aura where you ignore combat attrition penalties. So, not terrible. Then you have Thrall of the Silent King, which nobody has. And this one's probably one of the better ones. I would probably pay for this one onto a Cryptek model. And this gives you a 3-inch bump to the aura range. And also, you can do My Will Be Done or the Lord's Will within 12 inches instead of 9 inches for picking a unit, which is great. Implacable Conqueror. An Implacable Conqueror is Anrakir the Traveler. And this is when when a friendly dynastic core unit within 6 inches is within 6 inches, they can reroll their charge rolls. So this one is still the same, still pretty decent. Thrall the Silent King is the same as well, except for the addendums for My Will Be Done, Lord's Will, and Adaptive Strategy. And then finally we have Honorable Combatant. Honorable Combatant is Vargard Oberon. And so this one gives you, if you choose to fight honorably in the fight phase, against a character and allocate your attacks against him, you get +2 attacks, which is pretty nice. That's a lot of attacks. Then we have dynastic ones. So we've got Mefrit is +1 strength and attacks for the Warlord. Very solid. Nefrek is -1 to hit against your Warlord for melee and shooting. Pretty good. Nihilak is precognitive strike, which is you get to fight first in the fight phase. Novok is Blood-Fueled Fury. Each time this Warlord makes an attack on an unmodified to a roll of 6, inflicts 1 mortal wound on the target, in addition to any normal damage. Pretty solid. Sawtek is Hyperlogical Strategist. Stormlord still gets this, and this is 5+ command point regeneration, but it did lose the once per game reroll that you used to get. And then the Caesarcan is the Triarch's Will, and this one's really good, actually. If your Warlord has this Warlord trait, when assigning command protocols for the battle, you can select 4 command protocols instead of 5, and then one of them you can use for 2 turns instead of just 1 turn, which is super solid. So get that critical 1 twice. All right, Relics. I will say, in general, I feel like the Relics definitely got better, I think, overall. I think they're pretty solid and well worth taking. So definitely stuff to consider here. Orb of Eternity. So this is for a Resurrection Orb. This replaces the Resurrection Orb, and basically it gives you the same ability as the Res Orb, which I'll go over a little bit later. Actually, I'll just do it now. So I'll just read it here. So, and this is what the Res Orb does, minus the last part. Once per battle in your command phase, the bearer can use this relic. If it does, select 1 dynasty unit within 6 inches of the bearer that is not at its starting strength and has not had its reanimation protocols enacted this phase. So hopefully nothing blew up in your command phase and hurt your guys that you want to bring back, I guess. That unit's reanimation protocols are enacted, and every destroyed model begins to reassemble. Each time a reanimation protocol roll is made for this, and this is the part that's unique to this, you get a +1 to the result for reanimation. So basically, if you have a squad of 20, if you had a squad of 20 warriors that killed them down to 5, you would be able to then roll 15 dice to try and bring back warriors to your unit, and then every 4+, because you get the +1, would bring back a slain warrior model. So you're probably going to get back 7 or 8 guys. That's pretty good, even if it's only once per game. So I'm definitely taking some of these because I think they're pretty, like the Orb of Eternity, and the Resurrection Orb in general. I think it's pretty solid. Nanoscarab Casket is the next one. Each time the bearer uses its Living Metal ability, regain 1 additional lost wound. Nice, so he gains 2 wounds back every turn instead of just 1. Gauntlet of the Conflagrator. So this is a 12-inch range pistol 1. Don't roll to hit, it just hits. And instead of making a wound roll 1d6 for each model in the target unit. They'll take 1 mortal wound for each 6 you roll. That one's still the same and still pretty bad. Then you have Veil of Darkness. Veil of Darkness is as far as I can tell, it's exactly the same. So once per battle movement phase, pick a unit and pick the bearer and 1 friendly unit within 3 inches, and pick them, take them off the table, and set them back up 9 inches away from enemy models. And both units have to, if you pick 2 units, they both have to be set up within 6 inches of each other. So that's pretty cool. You've got the Voltaic Staff. So the Voltaic Staff used to be the Mefrit only relic, and now it's for everyone. And it got better. So it was Strength 5 and Assault 3, and now it's Assault 4 and Strength 6. It's still -2 AP, and it's still 2 flat damage for the shooting profile. And the combat profile got better in that it gives you +1 Strength and gives you 2 flat damage, which is pretty great. In addition, anytime you roll a hit roll of 6, you get 2 additional hits, so it gets Tesla. Man, that's really good. That's a great relic. I really like that one. I like that one quite a bit, especially on an Overlord or something like that. That's really solid. Then we have Void Reaper. So Void Reaper used to be a war scythe that always wound on a 2+ unless it was against a vehicle unit. And now it replaces a Void Scythe or War Scythe. And it replaces its abilities with +2 strength, -4 AP, 3 flat damage. So and then its special ability, each time an attack is made with this weapon, rules that ignore wounds cannot be used. So things like disgustingly resilient, or rules like that.
Disgustingly resilient.
Yeah. Also, like Fortune from Eldar, stuff like that. They won't be able to use that stuff, which is pretty nice, especially against a weapon that's 3 flat damage. So it's an upgrade on the Void Scythe in that it's less strength, but it is no minus to hit. And then it's an upgrade to the War Scythe because it's 3 flat damage. Plus, both of them give you that nice other ability. Then you've got the Sempentoner Weave, so an infantry noble model only. Add 1 to the toughness and wound characteristics of the bearer, so that's pretty nice to buff up your character. Then you have the Arrow of Infinity. So this is an upgrade to the Tachyon Arrow. It basically makes the Tachyon Arrow, instead of strength 12, strength 16, and does 6 flat damage instead of doing instead of just doing the 1 or the D6 damage. So yeah, that's really good. Well, it's not really good, but it's 6 flat damage that you can kind of.
Situation's amazing.
Yeah. That could be a real game breaker sometimes. A real ball breaker, especially if your opponent fails an invulnerable save. I can see that being very good. We've got Conduit of Stars. This is the Mephrit Relic, and so this is replaces the Relic Gauss Blasters. This is what the Royal Warden has. It gives an extra 6 inches of range, +1 shot, and +1 strength. So it's rapid fire 3, strength 6, -2, 2 flat damage. Nephrek gets the Solar Staff, and they kind of have rewritten the Solar Staff. It used to, if you did a hit to somebody, it was 6 shots before. A 6-shot Staff of Light. If you hit somebody, it used to give you -1 to hit. Now, until the end of the turn that unit is blinded, blinded units cannot fire Overwatch or set to defend. So that's pretty nice. The Infinity Mantle is the new Nihilak Relic. This replaces the Time Splinter Cloak. And so this one gives +1 to armor saves, which is nice. And then also each time the bearer would lose a wound on a 6, you roll a d6 on a 6, they don't lose a wound. Pretty cool. Novok gets the Blood Scythe. The Blood Scythe used to be +D3 attacks, and now it's just +2. So I like that better. Sawtech got a great relic. Sawtech got Vanquisher's Mask. Vanquisher's Mask is like the Vexator Mask or the Armor of Rust. So pick a unit within 3 inches and they fight last. Also the Judiciary's ability. Same as that. And then the Sovereign Control. And this one's kind of complicated. So this is the Arcan specific one. So the Command Wave Amplifier. While a friendly Caesarcan model is within 9 inches of the bearer, that unit benefits from the selected directive of your army's active command protocol. Instead of just 6 inches. So he gets a 9-inch bubble of, hey, do what I say. And then he also has the Synthetic Cortex Enhancer. And this is another aura. While a friendly Sawtech core unit is within 9 inches of the bearer, that unit benefits from both directives of your army's active command protocol instead of just the selected one. So a Caesarcan Dynasty unit within 9 inches of that guy will get both benefits from every single protocol, which is super good. I think that's very powerful. Combine this with the Warlord trait, and now you're getting 2 of any of the different protocols at full capacity, which is really cool. All right. Then we have Powers of the Satan. So they did change these a little bit. Antimatter Meteor, roll 1d6. So there's the 6 normal Satan powers, and then there are 3 unique ones for each of the character shards, the specific character shards. Okay, so Antimatter Meteor, roll a d6, adding 1 if it's a Tesseract Vault. On a 3 through 5, the closest enemy unit within 24 inches, instead of 18, invisible to the Satan shard, suffers 3 mortal wounds. So that's pretty good. It used to be D3. And then if it's a 6+, the enemy unit suffers D3 plus 3 mortal wounds. So really nice targeted smite. Or not targeted, but a really nice 24-inch smite. Times Arrow. Select 1 enemy unit within 18 inches invisible to the Satan shard. Roll a d6, adding 1 if it's a Tesseract Vault. If the roll equals or exceeds the wounds characteristic of any of the models in that unit, your opponent just chooses one and they are destroyed. Sky of Falling Stars, select up to 3 enemy units within 24 inches of the Satan Shard. And this used to be 18. Roll 1d6 on a 1 through 5. If the dice result is less than the number of models in that unit, they take d3 mortal wounds. If the Satan Shard is a Tesseract Vault, the unit suffers 3 mortal wounds flat instead of d3. So on a 6, it'll always fail. So it doesn't always happen, which is a slight disadvantage because it didn't used to be that. Cosmic Fire, roll 1d6 for each enemy unit within 9 inches. On a 4+, they take d3 mortal wounds. If it's a Tesseract Vault, it's 3 flat instead of d3. Seismic Assault, select an enemy unit within 18 inches of the Satan Shard. Roll a d6 for each model in the unit. Add in 1 if it's a Tesseract Vault. For each 6+, that unit will take 1 mortal wound to a maximum of 10. So that's pretty good. And that they did put a limiter on there because I do remember my Orc boys losing 15 or 16 models to my opponent rolling pretty hot on that on a Tesseract Vault. That was pretty sad. And the final normal one is Transdimensional Thunderbolt. So select 1 enemy unit within 24 inches invisible to the Satan Shard. Enemy character with a runes characteristic. You can't pick a Lookouts or enemy character unless it's the closest model. And then roll a d6 on a 2+, they take d3. Next, roll 1d6 for each enemy model or enemy unit within 3 inches of the selected unit. On a 4+, they take 1 mortal wound. If it's a Tesseract Vault, you roll a d6 for each unit within 6 of the selected unit instead of 3 inches. And then we have the unique powers, and so these are specific for the different Satan Shards. So the Deceiver's power is 12 inches, and you pick an enemy unit. Roll a 1d6 and add the Satan Shard's leadership, and then your opponent rolls a d6 and adds their unit's leadership. For every point you beat them by, they take a mortal wound. So it's kind of like Mind War, except it'll carry over for multiple models. So, God, that unit of Gretchen is going to have a bad time. And then Satan Shard of the Nightbringer is Gaze of Death. This one is so good. Select 1 enemy unit within 9 inches invisible to the Satan Shard. Roll 3d6 for each 4+. They take d3 mortal wounds. So if you roll 3 4s, they take 3d3 mortal wounds. Okay, because. Then the Satan Shard of the Void Dragon. Of course, he's got the most complicated one. So select an enemy unit within 18 inches invisible. You can't pick a character unless it's closest. Roll a 1d6. On a 2+, they take d3 mortal wounds. If it's a vehicle, it takes d6. And until the start of your next turn, if that unit is a vehicle whose characteristics change as it loses wounds, it halves the number of wounds it has remaining when determining what characteristics it should have. So if a Land Raider has 10 wounds left, it counts as having 5 wounds left instead, which is pretty nice. All right. And then we have chapter approved rules here. And so these are new mission secondary objectives that are takeable only by the Necron Codex. And it has to be every model in your army has to be a Necron, and your Warlord has to have the Necron keyword. You can choose these ones instead, and they all come from different categories. You have to pick those, or you don't have to pick those ones. But if you pick one of those, then you can't have one of the same type for your normal secondaries. So the first one is No Mercy, No Respite. This is a Code of Combat. Score 3 victory points at the end of the battle for each enemy unit that was destroyed by a Necron noble unit from your army. So normally I would say this one's probably isn't great, because noble units don't have a ton of attacks, they're not super good at killing stuff. But if you take the Silent King, he's a noble, and he can kill a lot of guys. So that might be a pretty good choice. Then you have Purge the Vermin. This one is one of my favorite, and probably one that I will take almost every single mission. This is reverse recon. Score 2 victory points at the end of your turn for each table quarter that does not have any enemy units wholly within it. This objective cannot be scored in the first battle round. So, I can score 4 points a turn on this if I just keep the enemy out of my deployment half. And if they do get in my deployment half, great. They're really close to my guns, and I get to shoot them anyway. So, as long as I'm screening out pretty good, I think that's probably not terrible. And it's also at the end of your turn, so you have a chance of recourse to actually kill said units and then get the points. It's a good one, I think. Treasures of the Aeons. If you selected the secondary objective, and then after both sides have finished deploying, your opponent selects 3 objective markers on the battlefield. Score a number of victory points at the end of your turn if you control 1 or more of these objective markers as shown in the table below. So if you control 1, you get 2. If you control 2 of them, you get 3. And if you control 3 of them, you get 5. So this one is probably not bad for a mission with few objective markers. So like if they only have 3 objective markers, as long as you're winning the game, you should be able to score 15 points out on this. And maybe even you can push one turn and get 5, because that's a big swing right there to get 5 victory points for a secondary. Especially with all the teleportation stuff that Necrons get, and how most of their models can be most everything can be objective secured. And then the final one is Ancient Machineries. I really like this one. I think it's pretty fun. So if you select the secondary, then after both sides have finished deploying, starting with your opponent, players alternate selecting objective markers that are not within any player's deployment zone to be Ancient Machinery objective markers. Until 3 of them have been selected. If there's only one objective marker, then only that objective marker is an Ancient Machinery objective marker. So they have to be outside of your deployment zone. Necron Core or Necron Canoptic units can attempt the following action: Awaken Ancient Machinery. At the end of your movement phase, 1 or more Necron Core or Necron Canoptic units can start doing this. This action, each unit from your army that starts to perform this action must be in range of a different Ancient Machinery objective marker. A unit cannot start this action while there are any enemy units, excluding aircraft, in range of the same objective marker. This action is completed at the end of your next command phase, provided the unit attempting the action is still within range of that objective marker. Get 3 victory points. So I think this one is pretty good as long as your units are tough and can live. And the Necron units are pretty tough and hopefully can live. So, like, as long as you can do that, it doesn't matter if your opponent takes the objective away from you. Like, if they control it, that's fine. That doesn't matter. As long as the unit is alive, that's all that matters. And you'll score 3 victory points, maybe even 6 or 9 in one turn.